Hey, it's Travis. It's Oscar Mike Radio. No graphics, no fancy lead in, no cool outro or intro. Just my voice. Just me in front of my microphone talking with you for a couple minutes. It's really interesting as next week I roll over and it'll be essentially the start of year 9. This is the last podcast show, talk, conversation for year 8. July 17th, we'll have a conversation with Marine Corps veteran and potential Massachusetts candidate for governor, Brian Shortsleeve. But this is the last time that year 8 will be mentioned because, Oscar Mike Radio got going, July 16th, July 17th in that time frame and then became official. But this is the end of year 8. This is the last time. And, what have I learned in the last year? I think for me, it's still this aspect where there's just so much I don't know. There are so many different stories about the military experience, and it's really wild when you think about it because out of like 300 and we'll just call it 50 million Americans, only 1% have served or are veterans now. That's a small, small number. But in that small number, the experiences vary so greatly. It's hard to understand just how varied everybody's story is, even though we go into similar boot camps, go to the same MOS schools, serve in similar or the same units doing the same thing. Someone from Ohio might have a completely different experience than someone living just over the border in Indiana. However, someone who came from California might have a lot in common with someone from the state of Maine in their service. And the military is changing right now. There are different systems, there are different technology, there are different priorities. You have one part of the military trained for conflict in Asia, with focus clearly on the Middle East and Europe. There's just conflict and strife in many different parts of the world, regardless of how that works. And so here we are. I could talk about military every day for the next 30, 40 years of my life, and I don't think I would have an idea of any major progress in my knowledge. Because while, some things stay the same, everything changes. People change, relationships change. I'm just reminded how much I don't know. I'm reminded about how much I don't know. And then I want to talk next about veterans advocacy. I am really on the fence about this one as you listen to me. I was a big fan of nonprofits and nonprofit advocacy as a way to help veterans out, but more and more we're starting to understand that after all this time and effort on different nonprofits for veterans, we still have veterans homelessness. We still have veterans who need jobs, and the 22 a day factor has not changed that much. It's still a problem. Still a problem. And I'm not sure what can be done to change that. And the root cause of a lot of these problems are veterans feeling isolated and alone. And I told somebody yesterday, they're asking me, well, what can we do? And what can be done? And I'm like, one of the best things I have seen to get veterans all in one space, talking with each other, meeting each other, and being able to gather them in a way where veteran service organizations can potentially meet those needs is free breakfast. It doesn't matter how young or old you are or what conflict you served in. A free breakfast where you're going to get pancakes, eggs, bacon, sausage, French toast, hash browns, wheat toast, rye toast, with jam, jelly, syrup, and butter is a surefire way to get veterans to come out. And I said to people, I said, you might have to get the younger generation, might have to open it up to their families. But the way I see it is, okay, so a veteran brings his family of 4 in for a free breakfast. And, maybe his wife and his 2 children did not serve, but those children could be future soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, Space Force, or even the Coast Guard, right? You could have young people seeing what the military veteran experience is like right there. Right there. Okay? Free breakfast. I've seen it where people will travel for miles to get a free breakfast. And so you have them come into the free breakfast. You have them sit there. You have them, understand what's going on. You have them sign in. Better yet, bring their DD-214, have them connect with organizations, get their name on a list, understand the demographics around them, how many kids, married, divorced, single, 10%, 20%, 70, 80, 90, 100% disabled, not disabled. What do they like to do? Motorcycles, check, okay, running, rucking, whatever. A free breakfast, to me, is one of the best ways to start getting this to happen. And, if you can do this right with the right kind of sponsor or whatever, buying a bunch of eggs, buying a bunch of bacon, buying a bunch of the fixins is money. I get it. I love eggs. Eggs aren't free, but compared to these huge, big gala events and other things people have and trying to get people to come out and spend 25, 30, 40, 50 bucks at the door, then raffle items, and then a band or a comedian or this or that for an hour and a half, 2 hours at night, a lot of times with booze involved and other things involved, where kids, can't really go and be themselves. It's a slam dunk. Because what are you trying to do here? Are you trying to entertain veterans under the guise of advocacy, or are you trying to actually connect with them and help them? And there's nothing wrong. If you want to have an event where, it's a ride, it's a, it's a poker tournament, it's a dart tournament, it's a soft, whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with having that, charging money to get in, paying your money, and then having some food and having some drink. And if you want to do that, great. Feel empowered to do that, okay? Feel empowered. But there's also this thing that works where, and I've seen it, we've got Martins in Abington, Fred Villa and his family have been doing once a month free breakfast for veterans, and we have people coming out of the woodwork to have a good breakfast at Martin's. And, Fred does it willfully, gladly, but if we scale that up, it could be the same thing. And yes, you may have to have wives and girlfriends and kids show up. And it won't be the end of the world. It will not be the end of the world. It won't be a bad thing. You know, those wives and girlfriends may or may not get together and support each other. You'd hope so. I love having kids at these events because kids are our future, and it's not a bad thing, and it's just a way to connect with people. So I'm a big fan of a free breakfast, and then have the veteran come in. Make sure they're veterans. Have them bring their DD-214. Have them bring their VA card. Have them, verify their family, and then have some veteran service organizations there to talk about who they are. Go up to the table, get a free pen or a free pad of paper or whatever, and do that. It's not, whiz bang, sexy or whatever, but it works. It works wonderfully. So just consider it. It's just my opinion on my soapbox and crate, and that's how I feel about it. Next thing I want to talk about is, hey, I have a confession to make. I used to get a lot of pleasure out of making fun of the Coast Guard. They're not really a service. They're not really a military branch. They kind of wear the mid-Navy outfits, and it's like you want to join the Navy but not really be in the Navy, and Semper Paratus, ready for what, right? Big deal. Well, I thought about it. You have a Coast Guard sailor, jumping on a submarine, speaking in Spanish to surrender, and he captured a sub, which is pretty awesome. But last week we had a Coast Guard rescue swimmer go down to the floods in Texas and save over 150 people swimming in flood water with God knows what in it. Through all that, to rescue people and save their lives. And, if he doesn't get a medal for that, I might take a phrase out of the Call of Duty. If we don't get a medal for that, I'll call the president myself. Not that the president would ever listen to me, but, we got to honor that. How cool is that? And it just goes to show that, the Coast Guard to me is one of the branches that's actively protecting from people coming into the country or bad things around the borders of our country, but they'll also push inland and save lives. They did it in New Orleans during Katrina. And I just don't think the Coast Guard gets enough credit sometimes for the amazing work they do. So, for what it's worth, bravo Zulu, very good. And I will never, ever make fun of the Coast Guard again, besides, when it's just in the nature of ribbing between services and branches. They are truly awesome and should be acknowledged as such. So again, shutting down year number 8. Man, it's just been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride for me. I really have, seen the effects of growth. I really appreciate all the support I have gotten over the years. I wouldn't be where I am without people who are really supportive of what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and, really understanding. July 22nd, 2016 is the first episode of Oscar Mike Radio. So we're counting down. Again, this episode is truly like the last one. The next one is a bridge one, and then we start the countdown for 500 with number 451 with Team Red, White, and Blue. It's just the way the dates played out, where Oscar Mike Radio, I recorded my first episode on July 16th, published it July 22nd, 2016, and then, never looked back. So in a way, this just keeps this all going. And I consider this one the truly last one of year 8, just for timing reasons. And then we start year 9 in the countdown to year 10. It's kind of hard to believe, especially when you consider most podcasts in between number 18 and 34, I'm sorry. Most podcasts you hear on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, only get to number 23 on the average. That's it. So I feel really fortunate. I feel really grateful. I feel changed. And I cannot wait to see what's next. So we're going to sign off now. I got a lot to do, and I'm going to have a good time doing it. Thank you for coming along for the ride. Thank you for being in my control bands. We're on the radar scopes, looking for bad guys. And as we say in Oscar Mike Radio, we are mission in flight.